That leads into the second Christmas game between the Indianapolis Colts and the Arizona Cardinals. So the Indianapolis Colts continue their hot streak. They beat the Cardinals on the road, 22-16. Cardinals, of course, have been reeling right now. But one of the most difficult things for people to grasp and come to terms with is their identity. Embracing one's identity is so difficult for people to accept because no one wants to be pigeonholed. No one wants to feel like they've been figured out. So people show this defiance and they want to show this new wrinkle to demonstrate that they can do something different, that they possess a multitude of skill sets. We see this with actors and actresses all the time. You see actors who are more associated with comedies who say, hey, you know what? I don't want to be viewed by directors and producers as simply being the funny guy. I don't want to be, if I'm Matthew McConaughey, I don't want to be in rom-coms anymore. I like The Wedding Planner, but I want to win an Oscar and go perform in Dallas Buyers Club. So he did that. We see that with Steve Carell and John Krasinski, from The Office to The Big Short, from The Office to Captain Jack Ryan, or that whole series with John Krasinski, right? They don't want to be pigeonholed as just comedy actors. But there are plenty of actors that have had that success in that transition, but most actors are successful because they understand who they are, because they embrace what roles they excel in. You have commercial actors, you have television show actors, you've got movie actors, and they stick with that role. They don't deviate to try and prove to critics, I can excel in a foreign role. And that's the Indianapolis Colts. The Indianapolis Colts are unabashedly and unshamefully open about who they are, and they are a run-first team. Unlike the Cleveland Browns, who haven't fully bought in, the Colts have bought in and understand we go as far as Jonathan Taylor is going to take us. We go as far as our run game is going to take us. That's where our success lies. And that concept is so hard for NFL teams to buy fully into because we just don't see it. Because there's always different defensive coordinators that are game planning a certain way, that are forcing opponents to have to try and circumvent the way that they normally play to prove to opposing defensive coordinators, we can beat you this way now. You didn't see this coming. The Colts don't do that. They say, yeah, you can game plan for Jonathan Taylor. You can game plan for our run game. The bottom line is we're going to win the war in the trenches. We're going to win this war of attrition, and we're going to come home victorious. If you can stop us, great. If you can't, sucks for you. That's the thing. Jonathan Taylor, 27 carries, 108 yards on the ground. The Colts are 9-0 this year when Jonathan Taylor rushes for over 100 yards. That's their season in a nutshell. He's the leading rusher in the NFL. That's been their success. They don't shy away from it. That is where they excel. And then from there, you have the confluence of defense and the coaching and a couple key throws per game from Carson Wentz, because I've repeated this one consistent theme when I've talked about the Indianapolis Colts. Obviously, if you've been watching the show, which I appreciate, you know how bullish I am about the Indianapolis Colts. I'm not going to rehash all the reasons why, but I've always been bullish about the Indianapolis Colts. But I've said one consistent thing for weeks and really for years, and that is that while the Colts are going to go however far Jonathan Taylor's legs can carry them, while that is the case, that is all contingent on Carson Wentz being competent. Doesn't have to be great. He has to be competent. He has to be able to execute a couple key throws per game. That's what they need from him. And they've been getting that recently. They got it from him against the Arizona Cardinals. 18 of 28, over 200 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, but 0 interceptions. And the thing about Carson Wentz is when he's at his best, where he's at his best is also where he has been in the past at his most reckless, which is scrambling out of the pocket, improvising, going off script. That's where he's been at his best, but that's also where he makes the most mistakes. But yesterday or on Saturday against the Indianapolis Colts, he made a couple key throws to win that game. Huge pickup pass to T.Y. Hilton down the sideline. And then to scramble away from pressure on the move, falling to your left to throw it in the back of the end zone to Desmond Patton for the touchdown. That was a vintage Carson Wentz type of play, and those are the types of throws occasionally that he's going to have to make for this team to thrive in the postseason, which they're capable of doing, which they're more than capable of doing. So this year, he's been a lot less turnover prone, especially in those situations. Obviously, as a whole, he hasn't committed nearly as many interceptions and turnovers, but especially in those off script, on the move type of plays. And the reality is the Colts just keep answering the test. They've won 3 straight games. They've won 6 out of their last 7. They've won 8 of their last 10. And a big reason why is because they have fully embraced what their identity is. They understand that we're a run first team, and our offense is predicated on our ability to ground and pound. That's the idea. Because half of their losses were the first 3 weeks of the season. This was a team that was still trying to find its way. Their chemistry hadn't developed yet. The symmetry, the harmony between all the guys, it wasn't nearly where it needed to be during that losing stretch. But again, that was during the first 3 weeks of the season. Since then, this team has been on fire. They've been playing extremely confidently, and they've been answering the calls. And not to mention, they did it without their top 4 offensive linemen playing in that game. Quentin Nelson wasn't playing. And they lost their left tackle, Eric Fisher, midway through the game. They lost their starting tight end, Jack Doyle, midway through the game. And yet they still found a way to win. Now, on the flip side for the Arizona Cardinals, this team is starting to unravel a bit. They've been reeling, especially since they lost DeAndre Hopkins. And listen, their defense is actually still really good. I thought that they've done a really good job, even without J.J. Watt. They had 10 tackles for loss against the Colts, a couple sacks. Budda Baker is still one of the best safeties in the NFL. The defense has been doing their part to contain the Colts to 15 points through the first 3.5 quarters. I mean, that's impressive. That's impressive. And the defense has been holding up their end of the bargain. It's been the offense that's sputtered. That's been sputtering right now. Again, no DeAndre Hopkins, no James Conner yesterday. He's kind of their physical back who picks up those tough yards for them, especially in the red zone. But the main thing is Kyler Murray, just especially without those targets, hasn't been quite as confident. He hasn't been playing quite as much downhill. And that's kind of been the problem recently. And it'll just be interesting to see the last 2 weeks for the Arizona Cardinals, because again, this is a team that started 7-0 and they've lost 3 in a row. They've lost 5 of their last 8, and they had 11 penalties for like 85 yards and 3 missed field goals by Matt Prater. 2 missed field goals, 1 extra point that he missed. That's 7 points on the board right there. They lost by 6. You do the math. They lost 22-16, and they missed 2 field goals and an extra point. Probably sets them up to win 23-22, potentially. So they've just been kind of trending in the wrong direction. They haven't been getting as many breaks later in the year that they did in the beginning of the season. And again, their last 2 games are tough. At the Cowboys next week, who are still fighting for the top record in the NFC, which is possible they could get it if the Packers were to lose again. And versus Seattle Seahawks, listen, the Seattle Seahawks have totally imploded but there's still pride in that locker room. They want to finish the season on the right note. They wouldn't mind playing spoiler at all, especially against a divisional foe with Russell Wilson. They'll go out and play with all kinds of confidence, guns a-blazing. So that's not a guarantee either. They may falter down the stretch. Right now, they're in the wild card spot. So it'll be interesting to see how they can kind of close out the season in the final 2 games for them.